What happens when America's favorite home renovation queen faces off against one of morning television's most beloved hosts? The answer shocked viewers everywhere. What began as a lighthearted promotional interview quickly spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime TV history. Joanna Gaines, known for her calm demeanor and southern grace, found herself in a tense verbal clash that left audiences questioning everything they thought they knew about both women. It was a typical morning at the Today Show studios in New York City. Joanna had flown in from Texas to promote her latest book, a blend of family recipes and design inspiration that had already topped bestseller lists. Dressed in a soft cream sweater, her signature long hair perfectly styled, she was the picture of poise and warmth as she waited in the green room. Producers had briefed her on the segment standard fare about her new project, Family Life with Chip, and the ongoing success of Magnolia Network. Across the hall, Hoda Kotb prepared for the interview, coffee in hand and notes scattered across her desk. The two had shared the stage before. Their past interactions were filled with laughter, easy conversation, and mutual admiration. But this time something felt different. Hoda's team had uncovered a few inconsistencies in Joanna's recent public statements, and the seasoned journalist couldn't resist probing deeper. As cameras rolled, Hoda introduced her guest with her trademark smile and enthusiasm. Joining us now is the woman who has transformed not just countless homes but an entire industry. Please welcome Joanna Gaines. The studio audience applauded warmly as Joanna took her seat, her smile radiant and practiced. "Thank you so much for having me, Hoda. It's always such a pleasure to be here," she said, her tone polite and composed. The opening questions were easy compliments about her new book, the stunning photography and the seamless blend of design and family. Joanna's responses flowed naturally as she described how food and home design both nourish the soul. Then Hoda's tone shifted slightly. "Speaking of family and authenticity," she began carefully, "I want to ask you about something that's been making waves in the design community." Joanna's posture remained perfect, but her eyes flickered briefly. Hoda continued, "There have been some discussions about the labor practices on Magnolia properties specifically, regarding fair wages for the craftspeople and contractors who bring your vision to life." The smile on Joanna's face faltered just enough to notice. "Well, Hoda," she replied evenly, "I think there might be some misinformation out there. We've always prided ourselves on working with local artisans and paying competitive rates." "Competitive rates?" "Yes," Hoda pressed gently but firmly. "But some former contractors have said that while the work is steady, the compensation doesn't always reflect the high-end results we see on television. One carpenter mentioned working on 3 Magnolia projects and feeling the pay scale didn't match the craftsmanship or the profits those homes brought in." The air in the studio grew heavy. Joanna clasped her hands tighter, her composure slipping just slightly. "I think it's important to understand that we operate within industry standards," she said carefully. "Every contractor agrees to terms before work begins, and we've never had anyone raise these issues with us directly." Hoda didn't let go. "But isn't it possible," she asked, her voice steady and direct, "that some contractors might hesitate to voice concerns, given the power dynamic and the risk of losing future opportunities?" The question hung in the air, sharp and unavoidable. The studio audience fell silent, the tension thick enough to feel through the screen. Joanna paused, her smile now thin and controlled. "I'm not sure," she said softly, her confidence wavering for the first time. The exchange marked a turning point, a collision between charm and scrutiny, image and accountability. And by the time the segment ended, it was clear that this wasn't just another interview. It was a reckoning. "I appreciate the implication there, Hoda," Joanna said, her tone polite but edged with tension. "We've built our entire brand on integrity and treating people fairly. Chip and I didn't grow up with money. We understand what it means to work hard for every dollar." Her voice was steady, but beneath the soft southern lilt, there was unmistakable steel. Hoda nodded, maintaining her composure. "I'm not questioning your background or your values, Joanna," she replied evenly. "I'm asking about current practices. Because when you're charging 7 figures for renovations and selling multi-million-dollar homes, shouldn't that prosperity also benefit everyone who makes those dreams possible?" She leaned forward slightly, her tone professional but unyielding. Joanna's expression hardened. "What exactly are you suggesting? That we're somehow exploiting the people we work with?" Because that's completely false and frankly insulting. Her voice had risen slightly, the warmth beginning to drain away. Hoda didn't flinch. I'm suggesting that when you become a brand worth hundreds of millions of dollars, there's a responsibility that comes with that success, and some people are questioning whether that responsibility is being met. The studio audience, sensing the tension, grew utterly silent. This was not the cozy, cheerful segment they had expected. Joanna took a deep breath, visibly trying to steady herself. Hoda, I came here to talk about my book, about inspiring families to create beautiful spaces together. I didn't come here to be ambushed with unfounded accusations. Her words were measured, but the edge in her tone was unmistakable. And I respect that, Hoda replied calmly. But as a journalist, I have to ask the tough questions. Your fans deserve transparency, especially when your brand is built on trust and authenticity. Joanna leaned forward slightly, her composure starting to fray. Transparency? Fine, let me be transparent. We employ over 200 people directly through our various businesses. We've revitalized an entire town that was struggling economically before we arrived. We've created opportunities for countless local businesses and artisans, but somehow that's never enough. Because a few people want to make headlines by twisting our success into something negative. Her voice grew sharper, her famous warmth replaced by a defensive edge. No one's twisting anything. Joanna, Hoda countered, consulting her notes with deliberate calm. These are legitimate concerns raised by people who worked directly on your projects. One electrician said he was asked to work 60-hour weeks at standard rates because the timeline was compressed for TV production. Another said materials costs were deducted from their final payments without prior agreement. These aren't attention-seeking headlines. These are real people sharing their experiences. Joanna's hands moved as she spoke, frustration flashing across her face. Those are isolated incidents being blown out of proportion. In any business this size, there are bound to be occasional misunderstandings or miscommunications. But to paint our entire operation with that brush, that's irresponsible journalism. So you're admitting there were incidents, Hoda said, her tone still even. Because earlier you said no one had ever expressed these concerns directly. Joanna's jaw tightened. I'm saying that in a company our size, with hundreds of projects over the years, if you look hard enough for problems, you'll find something to complain about. That doesn't mean there's a systemic issue. But her voice betrayed the slightest waver, an audible crack in her confidence. Hoda pressed on. But shouldn't those isolated incidents be learning opportunities rather than dismissed as complaints? When you're the face of a brand that promotes family values and community building, doesn't that create a higher standard of accountability? Joanna shook her head slightly, exhaling sharply. A higher standard? We're held to impossible standards, Hoda. Every decision we make is scrutinized. Every employee interaction is analyzed. Every business practice is dissected by people who have never run a company or employed a single person. It's exhausting, and frankly, it's unfair. Her voice cracked, revealing genuine emotion beneath her defensive posture. But that scrutiny comes with the territory of being public figures, doesn't it? Hoda said, her tone softening slightly but her words no less pointed. You've built a media empire on the premise that you're different, that you care more, that you do things the right way. When that image is challenged, the response matters. Joanna's eyes glistened, her breathing unsteady, as the meaning of Hoda's words settled in. The tension in the room was palpable, and for the first time both women seemed to realize that this interview had transformed into something far bigger than either had planned. What response would satisfy you, Hoda? Joanna snapped, her patience finally unraveling. Should we apologize for being successful? Should we pay every contractor double just to avoid criticism? Should we stop creating jobs and opportunities because some people prefer to focus on problems instead of solutions? Her words came fast, sharp, her southern charm giving way to simmering frustration. I'm not asking you to apologize for success, Hoda replied calmly but firmly. I'm asking you to acknowledge that with great influence comes great responsibility. When young entrepreneurs look to you as an example, when families save their hard-earned money to hire contractors inspired by your methods, don't you think there's an obligation to ensure those practices are as ethical as they are profitable? The question hung in the air, heavy and unflinching. Joanna's eyes narrowed. Ethical? You're questioning our ethics now? Her voice trembled with emotion. Chip and I have given our lives to this work. We've sacrificed privacy, family time, personal peace, all to inspire people and create something meaningful. And this is what we get. Attacked on national television by someone who's supposed to be a friend. I am your friend, Hoda said softly, her own emotions surfacing despite her professional tone. Which is exactly why this conversation matters. Friends ask hard questions. They don't just smile and nod when real issues need to be addressed. Your platform gives you incredible influence, Joanna. People trust you, and that trust comes with responsibility. Joanna's jaw tightened, her voice rising again. Don't lecture me about responsibility. We've donated millions to charity. We've rebuilt communities. We've created thousands of jobs. But apparently none of that matters if a few disgruntled contractors decide to air their grievances publicly. Her hands clenched in her lap, knuckles whitening with tension. It's not about a few contractors, Hoda countered. It's about the pattern, how success is shared or not shared throughout your organization. When you're making millions per episode and selling homes for 7 figures, shouldn't the people who physically build those dreams see some reflection of that success in their compensation? That question struck directly at the heart of the issue. Joanna bristled, her voice sharpening. You have no idea what our financial obligations are. You don't know about the insurance costs, the legal fees, the equipment expenses, the crew salaries, the location fees, the post-production costs. It's easy to sit there and judge when you don't understand the complexities of running these operations. Her southern drawl deepened as her emotions surged. Then help me understand, Hoda urged, leaning forward. Walk me through how you ensure that your success benefits everyone involved in creating it. Because right now it looks like the people at the top are thriving while the workers, the ones doing the physical labor, are struggling to make ends meet on projects worth millions. Joanna froze. The question seemed to pierce through her defenses. Her entire body tensed as she stared at Hoda, disbelief and fury mixing in her eyes. The studio lights felt hotter, the silence deafening. Finally she spoke, her voice low and tight. You want me to walk you through our business model on national television? You want me to justify every financial decision we've ever made to build something from nothing? This isn't journalism, Hoda. This is a hit job. It's not a hit job, Hoda replied, her tone calm but resolute. It's accountability journalism. When you put yourself in the public eye as a role model and thought leader, these questions come with the territory. I'm giving you the opportunity to address these concerns directly instead of letting speculation grow. Even as she spoke, she looked shaken by Joanna's intensity. Opportunity? Joanna repeated bitterly. This feels more like a trap. You invited me here under false pretenses, pretending this would be a friendly chat about my book, and instead turned it into an interrogation about business practices you clearly don't understand. I understand this, Hoda shot back, her own composure beginning to crack. When someone builds a brand worth hundreds of millions of dollars by promoting values like community and fairness, people have a right to ask if those values extend to how you treat your workers. That's not an interrogation, that's basic accountability. Joanna's face flushed with anger. Basic accountability? You're sitting there in your $1 million anchor chair wearing designer clothes, questioning how I pay contractors, and you want to talk about fairness? Her voice rose sharply, echoing across the tense studio. When was the last time you had to worry about making payroll or keeping a business afloat during a recession? Hoda's expression hardened, her professionalism now fully stripped away. My salary isn't built on the backs of craftspeople whose stories I'm supposed to represent fairly, she shot back. You've made yourself the face of authentic American values, while apparently underpaying the people who make your vision a reality. That's the difference. For a moment, neither woman spoke. The silence was electric, charged with unspoken emotion and mutual disbelief. The tension in the studio was so thick, it felt like even the cameras had stopped breathing. What was supposed to be a warm conversation about creativity and family had erupted into a live confrontation about ethics, accountability, and the price of success, and there was no going back. You keep saying that word like it's fact instead of opinion, Joanna snapped, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. We pay competitive wages. We follow all labor laws. We provide steady work in a volatile industry. But somehow, that's not good enough for you because it doesn't fit your narrative. With that, she stood up abruptly, her chair scraping harshly against the studio floor. "Joanna, please sit down. We're in the middle of a live interview," Hoda said, her tone urgent, suddenly realizing just how far things had spiraled beyond what she had intended. "No," Joanna shot back, refusing to sit. "I don't think I will. I'm done being lectured by someone who's never built anything, never employed anyone, never taken the risks that come with actually creating something meaningful. You sit in the studio and judge other people's work while contributing nothing but criticism." Her voice had grown louder now, commanding the entire room's attention as the studio audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "That's not fair, and you know it," Hoda countered, her composure cracking as she rose to meet Joanna's energy. "I've spent decades telling important stories and holding powerful people accountable. That's exactly what journalism is supposed to do." "Important stories?" Joanna scoffed. "Is that what this is? Because it feels like you're trying to tear down someone who's actually making a positive difference in the world, just to create a viral moment for your show. Is this really the journalism you're proud of?" She took a deliberate step back, creating space between them, the cameras tracking her every move. "I'm proud of asking tough questions that need to be asked," Hoda replied, standing now as well, the pretense of a friendly interview gone. "If you can't handle being questioned about your business practices, maybe you shouldn't be running a public company or positioning yourself as a thought leader." "Can't handle being questioned?" Joanna repeated, incredulous. "I've been answering your questions for 20 minutes while you twist every response into something negative. This isn't journalism, it's ambush television, and I won't be a part of it anymore." She reached down, unclipping her microphone pack. "Joanna, please don't do this," Hoda pleaded, panic flashing across her face. "We can work through this conversation like adults." "Adults?" Joanna's laugh was bitter, almost shaking. "Adults don't invite people onto their shows under false pretenses just to attack their character and business practices. Adults don't use their platform to spread unfounded accusations while hiding behind the guise of journalism." With that, she yanked the mic free and let it drop to the floor with a sharp thud that echoed through the silent studio. "These aren't unfounded accusations," Hoda called after her, her voice cracking with urgency. "These are legitimate concerns raised by real people who worked for your company. Real people with real grievances that you've decided to amplify without giving me a fair chance to address them properly." Joanna fired back, taking several steps toward the edge of the set. "You've already made up your mind about what story you want to tell, and nothing I say is going to change that narrative." "The story I want to tell is the truth," Hoda said, taking a step forward, her tone softening but desperate. "If you walk away from this conversation, you're walking away from the opportunity to tell your side of that truth." Joanna paused at the edge of the stage, her back half turned to the audience. Slowly, she turned to face Hoda and the cameras one last time. Her eyes glistened, her voice steady but weighted with emotion. "My side of the truth? My side is 20 years of hard work, hundreds of jobs created, communities revitalized, and families inspired to build something beautiful together. If that's not good enough for you, then we have nothing more to discuss." With that, she walked off the set, her heels clicking against the polished studio floor as the audience sat frozen in stunned silence. Hoda stood motionless under the glaring lights, the camera still rolling, the control room in chaos as producers scrambled for direction. Finally, Hoda turned back to the camera, her voice weak but steady. "We'll be right back." The broadcast cut to commercial, but everyone in the studio knew something irreversible had just happened. What was meant to be a lighthearted book promotion had erupted into one of the most shocking live confrontations in daytime television history, a moment that would dominate headlines and divide audiences for weeks to come. And as the clip spread across social media within minutes, one question lingered in every viewer's mind. Was Hoda's line of questioning fair journalism, or had it crossed the line into ambush territory?